Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're jumping into a bit of Olympic history that often gets missed, but it's packed with some pretty wild stuff. We're talking about the men's marathon at the 1904 Summer Olympics in St. Louis. Get ready, because some of these stories are truly unique.
Absolutely. And this was only the third time the marathon was even held in the modern Olympics. It took place August 30th, 1904. And the distance itself, well, it wasn't standardized yet. It was 24 miles, 1,500 yards, so roughly 40 kilometers. Our mission today is to really dig into the sources, unpack what happened, the shocking conditions, the crazy incidents that made this race, well, legendary.
Okay, so let's set the scene then. To really get how absurd this was, what were the environmental challenges these runners were facing? I hear the race started at 3:00 p.m.
Yeah, 3 p.m. in the absolute hottest part of the day. Temperatures were around 90 degrees Fahrenheit, that's 32 Celsius. And the course, not paved tracks like today, we're talking dusty country roads.
Dusty roads, 90 degrees. Wow. And what about support? Like water?
Well, this is where it gets fascinating and kind of disturbing. There were only two official water sources along the entire 40 kilometers.
Only two.
Yep. A water tower about 6 miles in, and then a well near the halfway point. And this wasn't an accident. It was apparently a deliberate decision by the chief organizer, James Edward Sullivan.
Yeah.
He wanted to research purposeful dehydration.
He wanted to what? Research dehydration on Olympic athletes.
Yeah. It sounds pretty shocking to us now, right? But it really shows how basic their understanding of physiology was back then. Completely different from today's sports science where hydration is key.
Was there any pushback? Did people think this dehydration research was crazy at the time, or was it just accepted?
Well, the sources suggest it was largely accepted, or at least not publicly challenged in a major way. Maybe some grumbling from the athletes themselves, but Sullivan was in charge.
Right, and the impact of these conditions, the heat, the dust, the lack of water.
Yeah.
It must have been brutal.
Oh, absolutely devastating. Only 14 runners finished the race out of 32 starters.
14 out of 32, that's less than half.
Exactly. It's the worst finisher-to-starter ratio in Olympic marathon history, by far.
And the winning time reflected that, I assume?
Completely. The winning time was 3 hours, 28 minutes, and 53 seconds. Glacially slow. It's the slowest ever Olympic marathon win. And get this, it was 29 minutes slower than the second slowest winning time ever recorded.
29 minutes slower. Wow. And adding to this misery, what about the course itself beyond the dust?
Oh, it was pure chaos. The roads weren't cleared at all. Runners literally had to dodge traffic, like crosstown traffic, delivery wagons.
Wait, actual cars and wagons during the race?
Yes, and railroad trains, active trolley cars, even people just out walking their dogs.
You're kidding?
Not kidding. Plus, you had the race officials driving vehicles, ahead of and behind the runners. And these cars kicked up enormous clouds of dust, just making the air quality even worse for the runners behind them.
So it's hot, you're dehydrated, and you're breathing thick dust kicked up by the officials' cars and dodging trolleys.
Pretty much, yeah. It was less a race, more an obstacle course survival test.
And we hear stories of runners collapsing pretty early on because of this.
Definitely. John Lorden, who'd won the Boston Marathon the year before, got violently ill. He dropped out after just 10 miles. Sam Meller, another Boston winner from 1902, he made it to about 14 and a half miles before dropping out, totally disoriented from the dust.
And wasn't there someone who almost died?
Yes, William Garcia, an American runner. He was found unconscious along the road. The doctors found he had severe internal injuries, basically hemorrhaging from breathing in all that dust. It was incredibly dangerous.
Just horrific conditions. But okay, moving from the sheer difficulty to the outright absurd. What happened at the finish line? This is where it gets really weird. Right?
Oh, yeah. This is where the story takes a truly bizarre turn.
So the first guy to cross the line was Frederick Lors. Looked pretty good, right? Clocked in around 3 hours, 13 minutes.
Exactly. Looked remarkably fresh, actually. And everyone thought he was the winner. He gets hailed as the victor. They take his picture with Alice Roosevelt, the president's daughter.
Wow, meeting the president's daughter. He's about to get the gold medal.
Right. But then spectators started yelling. They claimed he hadn't run the whole race.
So?
And Lors, he admitted it pretty quickly, too. Turns out he dropped out around the 9-mile mark. Cramps. And he hitched a ride in a car for about 11 miles.
He got a ride in a car during the Olympic marathon.
Yep. Waving at spectators and other runners as he passed them in the car.
Our way.
Yes, way. Then the car apparently broke down around the 19th mile, so Lors just got out and started jogging again, ran the last few miles into the stadium.
What did he say afterwards? Why did he do it?
He claimed it was just a practical joke.
A practical joke. winning the Olympics.
That was his story. The officials didn't find it very funny, though. The AAU, the Amateur Athletic Union, banned him for life initially.
For life. Did
Eh,
that stick?
Well, no, actually. It was commuted fairly quickly, just to 6 months. And believe it or not, Lours came back and legitimately won the Boston Marathon the very next year, 1905.
That is incredible. So, okay, Lours is disqualified for his joke. Who actually won the gold medal then?
Right. The official winner, the gold medalist, was Thomas Hicks.
And his story is, well, it's not exactly straightforward either, is it?
Not at all. Hicks's win is controversial for very different reasons. It involves what's likely the first recorded instance of performance-enhancing drug use in the modern Olympics.
Okay, tell us about that. What happened with Hicks?
Well, Hicks was struggling badly. About 10 miles from the finish, he was apparently begging his trainers to let him stop, to lie down. They had to physically keep him going.
Wow.
So from that point on, his trainers started giving him doses of strychnine.
Strychnine. Isn't that rat poison?
It is, but in very small doses, it acts as a stimulant to the nervous system. They mixed it with brandy and raw egg whites.
Brandy and raw eggs and strychnine. That was his support crew's idea.
That was the support crew's idea. They gave him multiple doses over the final miles.
So you mentioned performance enhancers.
Yeah.
Was this seen as cheating back then
Mhm.
or just medicine? The line seemed blurry.
Extremely blurry. I mean, the whole concept of doping as we understand it today didn't really exist. There were no rules against it.
Yeah.
Medical understanding was, frankly, primitive compared to now. They probably saw it as just helping him get through it.
Helping him. What state was he in at the finish?
He was in a terrible state. Reports say he was hallucinating. He could barely walk. His trainers basically had to half carry him across the finish line. They supported him under the arms, kind of shuffling his feet along the ground so it looked like he finished under his own power.
Good grief.
Yeah. As soon as he crossed the line, he collapsed. Had to be carried off on a stretcher, needed treatment from 4 different doctors, and he'd lost 8 pounds during the race.
8 pounds. That's a lot. It's a miracle he even survived, let alone finished.
It really is a very, very different kind of Olympic victory story.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the craziness didn't just involve the top finishers.
Yeah.
There were other wild stories from down the field.
Oh, definitely. The absurdity was widespread. You've got to hear about Anderson Carvajal.
The Cuban postman.
That's the one. Finished 4th. Incredibly. His story is amazing. First off, he almost didn't make it to St. Louis. He reportedly lost all his money gambling in New Orleans on the way there, had to hitchhike the rest of the way, arrived literally at the last minute.
Hitchhiked to the Olympics. Wow. And he ran in.
What did he wear?
Street clothes, like a long-sleeve shirt and trousers. He took some scissors and cut the trousers off the knee to make shorts right before the start.
Resourceful.
Very. And he hadn't eaten in something like 40 hours.
40 hours. How did he run?
Well, during the race, he apparently got so hungry, he swiped a couple of peaches from a spectator's car.
He stole peaches mid-race.
Yep. And then later, he saw an apple orchard near the course, decided to stop for a snack.
Okay.
Problem was, the apples turned out to be rotten.
Yeah. Gave him terrible stomach cramps. So bad, he had to stop running and lie down by the side of the road for a nap.
He took NAP during the Olympic marathon and still finished 4th.
Still finished 4th. After hitchhiking, running in cut-off street clothes, stealing fruit, eating rotten apples, and taking a nap. It's just incredible resilience, or maybe just sheer luck.
That's unbelievable. It really shows the kind of characters in these early games. Any other standouts?
Well, it's really important to mention the first 2 Black Africans to ever compete in the Olympics were in this race.
Oh, right. Tell us about them.
Lentanyan, who actually finished 9th, and Jan Mashiani, who came in 12th. They were Tswana men. They weren't even there strictly as athletes. Initially, they were part of the South African exhibit at the World's Fair, which was happening in St. Louis at the same time as the Olympics.
Part of the World's Fair. So how did they end up in the marathon?
Well, both had experience as long-distance message runners back in South Africa during the Boer War, so they had the endurance. Someone must have realized this and entered them into the race.
That's fascinating. And didn't one of them have a run-in with dogs?
That was Tanyane. According to the reports, he was chased nearly a mile off the official course by aggressive stray dogs.
Chased off course by dogs. A mile. Add that to the list of hazards. Heat, dust, traffic, dehydration, rotten apples, and wild dogs.
Exactly. It really paints a picture, doesn't it? And just as a footnote, there was also Albert Corey, a French immigrant. His records are a bit confusing, listed as French in some events, American in others. Just adds to the slightly chaotic record keeping of the time.
So if we step back and look at this whole event, what does it tell us about the Olympics back then?
Well, I think it perfectly illustrates just how nascent, how rough around the edges the early modern games were. The organization was often poor, sometimes non-existent by modern standards. Scientific understanding of athletes, training, physiology, extremely limited. And the rules themselves were still very much fluid and being figured out. It's just a world away from the highly regulated, scientifically managed, technologically supported events we see today.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Looking at this race really highlights how far we've come. I mean, in sports science, in basic athlete welfare, ethics.
Absolutely.
Our whole understanding of the human body, of fair play, it's evolved so much since 1904. It's almost hard to believe this was the same event. So, wrapping up, the 1904 St. Louis Olympic Marathon. It really holds this unique, almost legendary status in sports history, doesn't it? For sheer absurdity, if nothing else.
Definitely one for the history books, yeah. For, like you said, all the wrong reasons, but also the hilarious and frankly alarming ones, too.
A truly unforgettable, bizarre chapter.
It is. And it leaves you with a thought, doesn't it? Thinking about the extremes back then, the strychnine and brandy, Lorz's joke, it makes you wonder, what are the things happening in competitive sports today that might seem just as crazy or unethical 100 years from now?
Yeah.
What's our modern equivalent of that strychnine cocktail or that ride in the car just waiting to be uncovered in a future deep dive? How many other genuinely bizarre historical moments like this one are still out there, waiting for us to rediscover them?